and the lockdown. We are free and the lockdown. We are free. Open up the businesses. Open up all.
How do you feel about the premier calling people like you and everybody else here a Yahoo?
Yahoo!
I guess it's a badge of honor now. David Menzies for Rebel News here in Toronto. Well, folks, I'm back at Queen's Park, and this is the site of another protest by Torontonians and others who want to get the economy open. Now, you may recall Premier Doug Ford, his response to these people, well, he called them a bunch of yahoos. Well, you know what? I Googled the dictionary definition of yahoo. It is a rough, coarse, or uncouth person, a loud, boisterous person, or a derogatory term for a white person from the Confederate South. Well, I got to tell you, folks, a lot of these people are wearing Yahoo as a badge of honor. They're back in even bigger numbers, and the message to Premier Ford is they want to go back to work, they want to go back to school. They are sick and tired, not of the Wuhan virus, but about being cooped up. Let's see what some of them have to say today. So, sir, I'm reading your sign. It says real data versus fake model. What has been your reaction to the way in which the federal government has handled this crisis?
I think the federal government at this point should be held responsible for all the crisis that's happening in our country specifically. I mean, I watched your newscast before, guys. I mean, Dr. Tam knew about the person-to-person transmission back on January 15th. And then 2 weeks later, she goes and says that doesn't exist. And World Health Organization, like the person that's leading the World Health Organization for the first time is not a physician. And he was health minister of Ethiopia and trying to cover 3 outbreaks of cholera before. And I'm supposed to take that person's advice and take his credibility like it's a joke.
They gave us these 3 projections, elevated, probable, and the lowest, and said, oh, we got to do everything we can to avoid this. Well, we got the hospital data. The hospital data didn't even come anywhere to their lowest predictions. So what is the justified lockdown?
So obviously, you know, the reaction was swift, and it was a blanket policy that we modeled off of a communist dictatorship.
When the government says we didn't expect this and we didn't prepare it, this is all a joke. Like, this was obvious. The only 3 categories of population that must have been protected from the beginning is the elderly, the prisons, and homeless. Those are the only 3 people that had to be protected from the beginning, but we will not. We have violent offenders being released out of prisons, and we have healthy people being confined to their homes. It makes no sense. Why? So if people confined should be protected, well, give all the prisoners masks and let them stay in the prison. Why are you releasing violent offenders and a healthy, law-abiding citizen are forced to stay at home? It makes no sense.
Anybody who releases 1,200 prisoners from jail when there's actually no reason to is a Yahoo and should be thrown out of office.
I think people are realizing the real recklessness here is the way our governments just took this one-size-fits-all policy, which is cruel and merciless for the entire population.
Why is there 99% recovery rate, and people who are waiting for surgeries are dying, and there are people and children committing suicide? So it doesn't make sense. We like some answers, and they should be reasonable and logical.
We should have approached this the way Sweden and other advanced liberal democracies have, by allowing free and responsible individuals to make decisions about their own health care and to make decisions about their personal life.
And you can even go to restaurants right now in Sweden. Yeah. And so maybe have we overreacted? Maybe the focus should have been on the very vulnerable of society as opposed to shutting the whole economy down?
Yeah, I completely agree. You know, and I heard it once explained, I thought it was interesting. If the economy's running at 60 miles an hour in normal conditions, Sweden went from 60 to 40 miles an hour, and Canada, North America, we went from 60 to 3 miles an hour. And the problem I also have is that, you know, the politicians who made the decisions, they are still getting paid and they still have a job, right? So it's not like they shut themselves down and stopped their salary and potentially to go bankrupt. So there's always a conflict of interest too, right?
Do you think the elected officials are going to take heed of this outrage and, yes, get the economy back at least on a yellow light basis?
I actually don't. I think there's an incentive to maintain the state of panic and hysteria. They want to keep people in a frenzy so as to justify their initial irrational and ineffective overreactive policy.
So we've shuttered the world economy for 17,000 lives. That's official WHO data.
There's 10,000 beds available for people in Ontario to treat the serious conditions of COVID, and less than 10% is being used.
This is not about our health. This is all about formation of totalitarian regime.
Once people can't pay their bills, once people can't put food on the table, once they lost their business, once they're in danger of losing their homes, they're completely dependent on government.
My business has 80% of it. I've had customers cancel on me. I don't have any work right now. That's it.
I'm sorry to hear that. Do you think when things end, you'll be able to get back in the game?
This is the thing, Steve, because I'm a cleaner, and my clients, they're going by what the media is telling them, and the media is not being very clear, is it? They're not being very transparent. They're contradicting themselves. One minute we're supposed to wear masks, one minute we're not. One minute surgical masks are not okay and they don't protect against the virus. So we just want some clarity, you know. They say people they're allowed to go for walks in the park, but there's families that are getting fined for going out together.
Rebel media is true news. Rebel media is true news. Listen to them. CBC, shame on you. CBC, shame on you. CBC, shame on you.
Hey, ma'am, how you doing? They were just chanting, "Shame on CBC." What, they were just chanting "Shame on CBC." Why were they saying that?
That's a good question. I have no idea. You should ask them. They would know.
Are you with the CBC or?
The CBC.
Why do you think they would be saying "Shame on CBC"?
I have no idea.
So maybe you're.
Do you mind keeping your distance from me, sir?
This sign, for example, is a quote taken from a memorial to the Japanese Canadians who were interned in 1941, 1992. Prisoners in our own country.
The government tries to tell us we're in this together. Meanwhile, they're not in any legitimate way of losing their job. In fact, they got a raise. They don't have to worry about their businesses being shut down. All their friends are big business. They're booming right now. Small business is getting killed.
So you've got the Canadian flag upside down, a sign of distress, obviously. What do you think the province, the federal government should be doing to get the economy back on the rails again?
Well, we need to get back to work, okay? And if we don't get back to work, this is what's going to happen.
What about living? What about suicide, depression, loneliness, unemployment, spousal abuse, parental abuse, alcoholism, suicide?
The cure for this might actually be worse than the disease itself.
Sure it is.
Do you find it somewhat perversely ironic that in the West we're seeing attacks on our freedoms? We're seeing various democratic governments trying to curtail freedom of the press. You see a little bit of totalitarian Poland creeping into Canada these days.
This is exactly how regime works, right? Deprive people of the freedom of speech.
For example, if you criticize Dr. Theresa Tam, you're condemned as a racist.
It wouldn't matter what race or ethnicity she was. What she's saying is wrong, and she's lying to the public.
That's such an obvious tactic by Trudeau and everyone who's leading that agenda to discredit any possibility for people to actually question what's happening here.
Are you a Yahoo?
No, I'm a Roman Catholic. I'm a Canadian. God bless you all.
I think it was a bad decision to call out people who are standing up for their constitutional rights and freedoms. Very bad decision. Those are Canadian patriots.
Usually people that call names, they don't have anything better to say, so I don't think it was very professional of Doug Ford to call names. I think he should address the issue.
I've lost all respect for Premier Ford after he used those disparaging terms last weekend.
Another week or two, you're going to have a lot of Yahoo fathers who are having trouble feeding their kids, and they're going to be very Yahoo.
Is Yahoo something you would self-identify with?
Well, I'm here to protest, intelligently and calmly and reasonably, as we all should.
Yahoo!
Thank you. I guess it's a badge of honor now.
He didn't call those people who threw shit at his office Yahoos.
You know what, that's a good point. Yeah, that was the Extinction Rebellion people.
Any of those Yahoos.
Then I guess it's not too much of a stretch that he would turn on his grassroots supporters, such as you and the other people here.
He should think that those people that he calls Yahoos voted for him.
This is Chinese flag, and they killed the whole world. 20.
Wicked flag of hate.
Well, we might have just seen a hate crime on camera there. What do you make of Premier Doug Ford calling the people that were here last week a bunch of yahoos?
Well, if my child name called, what do you think I would say to him, right? I mean, it's pretty mature on his part. There was a little band under there that you wouldn't have even put me on TV if you saw. But anyways, I think it's super immature, and I've never been to a protest in my life. I don't identify right, left, or anything. My rights are getting stripped away, and I don't think anything of them. I think it's a joke.
This is a universal thing. This is actually beyond left wing, right wing. It's beyond any of that. I think it's just universal, that we have our right to assembly, speech, freedom of conscience. We have a right to be free from isolation and fear and state control. That's all I'm here for.
If the government is evil, I'll be for people against the government.
I also want to give credit to Rebel News. I, for one, had never consumed Rebel News, but I commend you, Mr. Menzies, for coming out and being the only news service to actually take the real words of the people here. I really appreciate that.
Well, thank you so much for your time, sir, and you stay safe, eh?
Thank you.
Okay.
Take care, sir.
Okay, take care. Now, in the last election, sir, did you support Doug Ford? Did you vote Progressive Conservative?
Yes. Okay. And I'm almost sorry I did.
There are many people that supported him, and it seems that he's turning his back on a lot of those people right now. So who's he really answering to?
I'm worried about every Canadian out of work, every Canadian being independent, and every Canadian having freedom of choice. They've taken all of that away from us, and they're trying to keep it going as long as possible because they want to create this idea that this is the new normal. There's no new normal. The normal is what we had, and that's what we're going to go back to.
Well, folks, there you have it. The yahoos have spoken, and I say that because many of them, like I said earlier, are adopting this as a badge of honor. This was Premier Ford's slur against the group that appeared here last Saturday. In the meantime, I am pretty sure, folks, that come next Saturday, when the third protest is scheduled, and as the warmer weather returns, I think the turnout will be even bigger. The only question is Premier Ford going to listen to the people or simply shrug them off as a bunch of yahoos? For Rebel News, I'm David the Menzoid Menzies. Hey folks, have you been unfairly targeted by law enforcement or bylaw officers? Have you been given one of those $880 coronavirus tickets? Well, if so, tell us your story, and if we think you've got a good story to tell, we will go to bat for you. We will take up your case in a court of law with our legal eagle, Sam Goldstein. Go to fightthefines.com, that's fightthefines.com, and let us know your situation. And hey folks, if you don't have a story, but you'd like to help crowdfund our legal fees, again, go to fightthefines.com, and if you're able to, make a donation. Thank you.